Good evening, everybody. I'm Hayden Pegg, alongside with Jimmy McAwee, Andy Consolino, and Roman Vernisi. Today we will be talking about our ecosystem, which is coral reefs. So first, I will talk about what coral reefs are. So a coral reef, as we all saw at Sombrero Reef, is an underwater ecosystem. It can contain up to 6,000 different species of coral, reef-building corals, and corals are actually made of CaCO3, which is calcium carbonate. Next, corals are very important because it protects the coastline and seashores from natural disasters such as hurricanes and tsunamis. They provide a shelter for over 1 million marine organisms. It is essential nutrients for all different organisms. Assist in nitrogen and carbon fixation. So what is threatening these coral reefs? Physical damage from boats, anchors, all these different human-made, along with coral harvesting, coral bleaching, pollution.
To continue with Jimmy Mack, we're going to talk about what would happen if all corals died. First off, shorelines would be vulnerable to erosion. Rising sea levels would push coast-living communities completely out of their homes. And we pulled a quote off Insider that states, without these attractions, economists estimate that coastal tourism would drop more than 9%, which is equivalent to about $36 billion. Lastly, the corals provide shelter for more than 200 million people, acting as barriers to coastal livelihoods. Next, we're going to talk about how we can protect the corals. As Mr. Perry stated, we could recycle and dispose, minimize the use of fertilizers, overseas orders in bulk, reduce stormwater runoff, dive and snorkel responsibly as we have, and volunteer for cleanup whenever you see trash. Next, we have the biological study of coral. The study of coral is known as coral ecology, population biology and trophic dynamics, interactions between light and living organisms, and lastly, the better understanding the effects of global warming.
All right, this is Andy Consolino. I'm going to be talking about the ecological importance of coral reefs. One big factor in coral reefs is that it protects coastlines from storms and erosion. Another thing it does is it provides jobs in some communities, and over 500 million people depend on reefs for food, medicine, and protection. Coral affects certain organisms in multiple different ways. It provides a safe environment for the organisms to live in, and it can serve as protection for the organisms as well, making it a great place for them to live in. It's really good for them to reproduce in because, like I said, it's very protective, and they don't have many predators to come in and get them in the coral reefs. It supports organisms at the bottom of the food chain, and it is a good source of nitrogen and other nutrients for the food chains.
So it's Roman here. Telling you guys a little bit about what kind of fish we saw. So we saw a lot of jacks, pompanos, and then when we went out to the Sombrero Reef, we saw a reef shark, actually, a very small one. And then we saw a lot of mangrove snappers. Saw a bunch of barracuda all week, a lot of parrotfish, a lot of schools of parrotfish, bunch of lionfish on Thursday. And then we saw a bunch of stingray Thursday and a bunch of them when we went out to the reef. We saw a bunch of grunt. We actually saw a hawksbill turtle. And then as me and Jimmy McAwee were snorkeling, we saw a big cowfish. So those are just a little bit of the fish that we saw this week.
Lastly, we'd like to thank everybody for making this trip possible. We were able to snorkel in one of the world's most popular and best snorkeling destinations, and we were able to experience many different corals. So thank you to all.
That's freaking awesome.